I mean, Danny, what's your take on that last night? 4-0. I switched on, it was 1-0. I thought, what? Well, England have got time here to win this game.
It's an incredibly disappointing result. The last couple of results, obviously the two games against Hungary, especially, you would have to say, were disappointing. Hungary are a decent side, though. I think a lot of people have maybe shown a little bit of disrespect. I did the commentary for the Hungary-Germany game. They battered Germany.
Yes.
They were all over them. They had 7 or 8 really good chances. They should have won that game comfortably. And Germany on a really good run since Hansi Flick came in and took over. I think these results are in isolation compared to what's gone before.
We shouldn't pay any attention to it. A 4-0 home defeat
I
to
don't
Hungary.
think so. It's one result. It's one bad result in however many. It happens in football. That's not a problem.
What about the chance? You don't know what you're doing. You're getting sacked in the morning. How will Gareth be about that?
He said far worse. Don't worry about that. Wherever he's been, he's had to deal with a lot more than that. That won't faze him in the slightest. He'll be disappointed, but I think there are circumstances that go into that. Ultimately, it comes down to, I think we've overhyped our team, overhyped our players. And when you look at the team that was put out last night, which was basically a second-string England side, not good enough. The quality isn't there.
You're sitting nodding to what Danny is saying. Before we hear from you, let's hear from Southgate, because he addressed those chants post-match with Faker others.
Well, look, it's not a pleasant experience. It's one that all of my predecessors have been through. But I've had some incredible nights with England, and this is the reality of football. You're going to have nights that are particularly painful and stretch you as a human being right to the limits, and tonight was one of those.
It's a difficult performance to defend. A lot of people will be calling for a change in management. Or are you the right person to lead this team to Qatar?
Anything on the back of tonight needs time for everybody to reflect and to think very clearly about, because it's remarkable, really. The 2 Nations League competitions we've had have been the competitions that have brought pressure on. Now, it's never been a competition in the past. The Europeans and the Worlds have been what you're preparing for. If we were at full strength for all 4 of these games and the results had been as they have been in the 2 Hungary games, then I think that's a different matter. So, I've tried to balance all those things, but in terms of the results, we haven't got them, and I have to accept the criticism that comes with that.
Okay, so Simon, you heard Danny on it. What's your take on it? Does Southgate deserve a bit more respect than he's getting this morning?
It's very difficult to disagree with the bulk of what Danny said, because I am actually very much in the camp that we've overhyped this team and overhyped their players. And I listened to Harry Kane's interview after the game where he talked about, where we've come from. Well, where you came from was a very low bar, and you managed to achieve a very low standard. So on that basis, it shouldn't be rewarded for doing things in the past and building from a very low base. Listen, tragically for me, I turned on the television and I thought I was watching Scotland for a moment. I caught up with the game. Listen, this is about application meets execution meets motivation, right? You can't apply yourself or execute if you don't have the motivation to do it. This group of players weren't motivated enough to be able to play in these games. If this had been a normal set of fixtures, they'd be playing in a World Cup now.
Why weren't they motivated enough?
Well, because they've been led into a sense of entitlement that the season's been a long and gruelling one. Look at the players that are on that pitch. The average player on that pitch played 37.4 games last year. So we don't need to be talking about all the pundits, Joe Cole, people, and I like Joe, I like Joe, spoke to him last at the boxing with you, that were making excuses for that level of performance. I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's necessary, and it seems to be rumbling through football supporters, this intolerance, real quick intolerance that Gareth Southgate should be listening to. You're getting sacked in the morning and you don't know what you're doing. There is a narrative building, and it's a justified narrative that Southgate is a one-dimensional manager, is a manager that can affect play from the first whistle, but when a game changes on the pitch, he doesn't do very much to address it. He didn't do it against the Croatians. And the narrative that Harry Kane built up about how far we've come, we're a team that's gone since 1966 to a tournament. No other England manager, I don't care who they are, Bobby Robson, Kevin Keegan, Steve McLaren, has had the draws in tournaments that this fella's had.
Right.
He's had more luck than anybody. He's been the luckiest person from Luckland.
I slightly disagree with that, and I went through it earlier with Jim. Every team that wins the World Cup probably has 2 difficult games to play. That's it. All the group stages are incredibly easy. They sail through the group stages.
Put the group stage to one side. If you look at the draws,
but then after that, you've only got 3 games.
Well,
that's it.
You look at the draws that we've had in the World Cup, and you look at the teams that we played there. We played a Colombian side that on paper should have been much better, but they lost their best players. We played a Swedish side that were bang average, and then we played against the only team that we really lost to, besides the Belgians, was the Croatians, and there's a could and should mentality now. We could beat them, not necessarily should.
But I would go back to possibly the greatest footballing team that we'd seen in the last 15 years, 20 years, Spain.
Yep.
Had the easiest group in the world
to
win the World Cup. They played Portugal in the round of 16, Paraguay in the quarter-final.
Yep.
Then they beat Germany 1-0, they beat Holland 1-0. They barely scored a goal. They lost their opening game.
But Danny, I accept that. But 4-0 last night to Hungary at home, and a couple of games to go. There's Pete in Shropshire. I'm looking at the messages. Morning, guys. Southgate needs to go before the World Cup. He's clueless.
It's a one-off.
The players don't believe in his defensive style of play.
It's a one-off game, and look at the team that played. I'm sorry, but
there's Matthew. Momentum is what you need going into a World Cup. We don't have any.
It's 6 months away, Jim.
Yeah.
The World Cup is 6 months away. There's so much that
these performances will not be mirrored in September.
No,
notwithstanding that, he can't get away from it. Those players are playing for their country. They're playing in front of paying fans. You're going to get this kind of reaction from a rabid media at times and a fan base.
Rabid media? They lost 4-0 to Hungary.
I know,
Jim, it's a poor result in isolation. If you'd have won that game 2-0 last night, you go, OK, lost to Hungary, disappointing. Drew with Germany, drew with Italy, beat Hungary. Not an issue. Suddenly you lose one game and the whole narrative changed that we've got to have a different England manager.
League campaign though, Danny, hasn't it?
But it's almost irrelevant.
It's been poor, mate.
But it's almost irrelevant because the business end of our focus has to be in September, building up towards the World Cup. This is a guy that's taken, whether I think he's had an easy ride of it, has taken us to a semi-final of a World Cup and a final of a European Championship.
And there's the headline in the back of the Times: fans turn on Southgate.
Yeah, but if they'd have won that game, there wouldn't be this hysterical outpouring of how wonderful we are.
Of course not.
So why do we have to have this
ridiculous
over-egging of the pudding about how bad we are?
But Simon, the media didn't ask the fans to get in the hind legs last night and sing "You don't know what you're doing." You're getting sacked in the morning.
The
fans did it themselves.
The media created temperature where fans respond to it. Fans read things, they respond to things that are written, and they build up a narrative. Hang on.
That incidentally, you battered Southgate on this show.
No, I don't. I make an objective observation. No, I haven't. I've turned around and said the same thing as I'm saying today. That he's
You called him four-leaf clover boy
because he's lucky. Because of the bloody lucky draws.
Is that respectful?
Well, it's an embodiment of luck. i.e., I'm creating an image in people's minds what luck actually looks like. Someone walking around with a four-leaf clover. He's lucky.
You've contributed to the temperature.
No, I haven't. I've talked about his luck because I get tired of this narrative with people that are coming out and saying, look how wonderful England are. He just grounded it by saying this is an overhyped England side. It is an overhyped England side. And who overhypes it? The media overhype it. And now what the bottler's done now, because Southgate said no expectation on him, the media are now hyping up the expectation.
The problem is Gareth took over.
The media's observing it.
Gareth took over at a very, very low level of expectancy. Went way beyond what anybody expected in the last two tournaments. Nobody expected them to get to a semi-final and a final. No. From the situation we were in and the young players that he brought through. So that was beyond belief when that happened. Now suddenly the expectation is we should be winning the World Cup. Get real. But there are 8 or 9 teams out there that could win the World Cup.
But Danny, we should be. We shouldn't be. We've got nothing in front of us now. You build momentum. When France started building momentum to win tournaments, they started to be successful and they expected to win. We've got to a semi-final that we should have won. We've got to a final that we could and should have won, and we'll never get a better opportunity to win it on home soil against an ageing Italian side. So the next step has to be winning this tournament. So he's rightfully under pressure, but the hysteria that's building up now because of this result is just bloody silly.
Well, I'm looking at the messages that are coming in. I'm looking at the calls that are coming in. Let's hear a few of you. 03717 223344. Are England self-imploding? Are the fans self-imploding this morning? Are they right to criticise? Are you guys and girls right to criticise with chance of you don't know what you're doing, you're getting sacked in the morning? Here's one thing for you. Southgate will be in Qatar with England. We know that. There is no chance that he's not going to be the man in charge, so let's take that as read. But we're keen to hear from you. 03717 223344. Could anyone out there have predicted England 0, Hungary 4?
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.